Hello everyone, got another pen video here for you, and get that pen on there a little bit better. All right, so today I've got a pen that I'm always excited to review a fountain pen, but this one I'm even more excited for. And the reason being, this is a pen that I've wanted to own for quite some time now. And the pen that you see in front of you, most of you may already know, but it is the Pilot Falcon. Now, this pen used to be called the Namiki Falcon, but Pilot rebranded their pens and they wanted Namiki to be kind of synonymous with their really, really high-end pens. So this one is now called the Pilot Falcon. Now it comes with your standard Pilot pen coffin. I say standard because I've gotten this pen, pretty much the same pen coffin with other pens. But it's nice, it does the job. You'll notice that I put my little sticker right there. Got your little tray here. It's got some, or had some information underneath. And it's actually a double tray. This one comes up too. Pen comes with a cartridge and a converter, which I really like. I've gotten some Pilot pens that did not come with a converter, and I had to buy that separately. This one does. And the converter that it comes with is the Con 40 converter, which I'll show you guys here in a moment. Now, I got the black resin version with the rhodium trim. I kind of wanted to get something different. I didn't really want gold trim because I have that same trim on my Custom 74 as well as my 823. So it'd be nice to get some kind of silver trim. Now, the pen, because it's similar to my Custom 74, is definitely, and I'll do a little between the two pens as far as sizing and things of that nature. Now, I do like this clip design. It is very much different than most other Pilot pens. You know, you usually get that kind of standard ball clip design. While it's somewhat elegant and stands the test of time, this clip is really nice. It's very springy, which I really like. It slides in and out of the pocket very well. It also slides into a pen sleeve nicely, so I really like this clip. Another kind of interesting touch, and see if we can see it. I got my fingerprint on there, some better light in here. But you can see we have got a metal kind of cap jewel up here on the cap finial, which is kind of different and a nice, interesting touch for the pen. And again, you'll notice the cap band is definitely different than a lot of other Pilot pens. You kind of have this chain link design on it. You've got a small cap band up here and then a more broader. And then on the back, it just says Pilot Japan. So again, just some slight different design elements. You'll notice that the cap is the widest point here and then tapers down to the very end, kind of make like a cone type shape. And the barrel does essentially the same thing. Wide point is up here and then tapers down to the end. And the bottom of the barrel is just the material, the resin material. And then you've got just a slight rhodium colored barrel band right here. So nice, simple, elegant pen as far as design. Not an oversized pen by any means whatsoever. And this is one of the few pens that I actually write with a lot posted. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's because it is so light that I do write with it posted. And again, I'll put measurements and dimensions or weights for you so you get an idea from a weight perspective. Now, as far as uncapping it, there's one, just under 2 turns to uncap the pen. Reveals that nib, and that nib is so much different than any other nib that you're going to see. So I went with the, of course this is the rhodium nib. I went with the SF, so soft fine nib. I didn't want to go with the extra fine only because I just didn't want a nib that was going to be very scratchy. And so I went with this one, and of course you got your Pilot feed on the back, and that nib is just crazy. And that's one of the things that really, to me anyways, because the nib is just so much different than anything you see, and the writing experience is definitely different as well. Now, looking at the section here, now you'll notice that it tapers down all the way to the end. We don't really have a flare out. I've had some reviews that I've watched on this pen that some people don't like the section, just the overall design of it. For me, it doesn't bother me at all. I typically hold the pen back a little bit farther generally, especially if I'm writing, you know, more rapidly. I typically hold it farther back. These threads are machined well and they don't really dig into my fingers at all, and you'll notice there's really no step down there. Now you do have some metal here as well as some metal band here as well. But other than that, no real issues. Again, this is a pen that if you're taking a quick note, for me, you know, I have pretty normal sized hands. It definitely fits in the hand comfortably, but again, it is a very, very lightweight pen. Posting it definitely makes it more comfortable. At first, I noticed that it was a little bit back heavy. Now, I don't know if that's because it actually is back heavy because of your clip and everything here, or if I just notice it more because, again, I don't typically post my pens. Now, let's look at the inner workings of the pen. So again, this comes with the Con 40 converter, which, you know, I would love it if we could do a Con 70 in this, but I don't mind the converter at all. It doesn't hold a ton of ink, of course, but it definitely, if you're someone that likes to switch out your inks a lot, it's not a bad converter by any means. Again, just a converter. It works well, it does the job. I really don't have any complaints about it whatsoever. And then of course you can see the barrel there. We've got it here. So that is that as far as the pen goes. So really, guys, you know, I bought this pen not so much for the materials or anything. I bought it for the nib. So what we're going to do next is we're going to do some sizing comparisons just to give you a generalized idea of how it compares to some of its brothers and sisters, and then after that I'll pop up some weights and measurements on the screen, and then of course we will do a writing sample. I'll see you guys in a moment. Alright guys, so we have all Pilot pens here, and of course I had to include the Pilot Metropolitan because I know it's a very popular pen and a lot of people seem to own it. But we've also got the Pilot Custom 74 here, which again is another pretty popular pen, and then the Pilot Custom 823, which I think overall is again one of Pilot's more popular pens as far as one of their a little bit more higher end pens, so to speak. Now you'll notice that the Pilot Falcon, as far as overall length, is the shortest in this grouping, and again, it's one of the reasons why I generally post the pen when I write with it. Now it's made out of really the same type of material as our Custom 74 up here. Now one thing I do notice though is this pen, maybe it's just because it has a little bit of that additional length, it definitely fits, you know, nicely overall in the hand. And it just seems, maybe it's because I've got the Con 70 converter in there, it just seems a little bit heavier whenever you're holding it just for general writing. Now let's look at all four of the pens uncapped. All right, so you'll notice overall uncapped, the Pilot Falcon is fairly close, or as far as overall length, to our Custom 74 up here. The Pilot Metropolitan, I don't know if you can see it on the camera, is just ever so slightly longer. And then of course the 823 is going to be the longest out of these four pens, and overall the heaviest, at least in my opinion, mainly because you've got more metal, of course, in here, and the pen just happens to be a little bit heavier. Now, as far as sections, I definitely really love the 823 section. It just feels nice in the hand, and I generally, you know, like the Custom 74. I don't mind the Falcon whatsoever, but it's not, as far as the overall comfort level, it's not probably my most comfortable out of these four. I would probably go with the 823. And then these two are pretty close. I would say the Falcon would be just right behind the Custom 74. But the question is can the nib make up for the section? So, and we're going to find out here in a moment. So up next, well, before I move on, let's look at those nibs a little bit closer. Turn off some of this backlight and see if you guys can see those nibs. So of course you got a lot more scroll work over here with your two nibs here. You've got a Pilot's proprietary number 15 nib here, which is to me kind of like a number 6 size nib. And then you've got their number 5 nib here on the 74, which is kind of like a number 5 size nib if we're going with by Western standards. Got a medium here, soft fine here. Of course, we got our Metropolitan nib there, and then we've got our Falcon nib here, which again, to me is like no other nib really, at least in my opinion. All right, guys, we are going to do a writing sample next. I will see you guys in a moment. All right, everyone, we are back. And of course, one thing I failed to mention was where did I actually purchase this pen, and where I purchased it is from gouletpen.com. Most of you all know about Goulet pens, and they always send some really cool cards. So this is one of the cards they sent. Thanks and enjoy. Right on, Colin is the person that packed my order. They did a great job, of course, like usual. Anytime I've ever ordered something from Goulet Pens, I've never been disappointed. I paid $152 for this pen. There were a couple of other cheaper options. Obviously, I could have bought it from a Japanese retailer and paid a little bit less, probably $20, $25 less. But I thought it would be nice to, you know, support a local U.S. retailer. Big fan of Brian Goulet, and, you know, that's one of the reasons why I bought it from there. Now, the ink that I am using, I had to go with a Pilot ink, of course, and we have got a little Fuyu Gaki. I probably destroyed that, and I apologize, but a really cool orange ink, provides a little bit of nice shading, and I really enjoy Pilot inks to begin with. All right, so let's take a look at this nib and see how it performs. So again, we have the Pilot Falcon. Now I have got a soft, fine nib. Now you'll hear some feedback to me. It's kind of a pencil-y type feedback, but this nib is very smooth in my opinion. I don't have really any complaints about this nib at all. There you have it. Do a little bit of fast writing, or faster anyways. As you can tell, the feed does a good job keeping up. Probably can't make out any of those words for the most part, but hey, there you have it. There's some fast writing. Now, as far as like a wetness test real quick, it's a nice wet writer. I would say moderately wet, but it definitely lays down a decent amount of ink, especially for a fine nib. And again, bear in mind, this is a Japanese fine. It's not like a Western fine. It would probably be more like a Western extra fine. Now, probably what everyone's been waiting for. What type of line variation does this pen give? So here's no pressure whatsoever. And then we'll just kind of squeeze it out a little bit more, a little bit more. And there you have it. So some really nice line variation overall. Now, bear in mind, this pen is not marketed as a flex nib. It's marketed as a soft nib. So we've all seen the awesome videos of someone doing like a really beautiful handwriting with this pen, and it just makes people think, oh wow, this is a beautiful flex nib. It's not necessarily, but you can definitely get some line variation. It is a pen that you can definitely add some character to your writing, and I really, really, really enjoy writing with this pen. And I don't care what I'm doing. I don't care if I'm trying to really put more pressure on the nib and get some line variation, or if I'm just doing normal everyday writing. It is just a joy to write with. I love all my Pilot pens, but this one is quickly becoming my favorite. Now, granted, I haven't used my Pilot Custom 74 in a couple months now. I poor guy has been kept up in my pen drawers lately, but I'm sure if I ink that up, I probably will, you know, this pen will have some competition. And my 823 is always inked up. That's just my workhorse pen. I love that pen as well. So the question is this pen worth $152 price tag? My answer is yes. I think this pen is awesome. Again, you can get some really nice line variation. It is just fun to write with. Now, what are my complaints about the pen? It's really similar to a lot of the pens, this black resin. I know what I'm getting. It's just a fingerprint magnet. You know, I have kind of oily hands, and definitely one thing, I feel like I'm always like wiping these pens off. So it is a fingerprint magnet. That's one thing that I would say is a little bit of a drawback with this pen, but I don't mind it. But I will definitely say the nib makes up for any drawbacks. One of the cool things about this nib is really the way it writes. You'll notice, see how it just separates from that feed? And it's so crazy because you get that line variation and the nib is not even on the feed. And that feed does a pretty good job keeping up. Now, you can railroad this pen, don't get me wrong. Now, I don't push this pen as far as maybe somebody will. And bear in mind, I have seen some like horror pictures of this pen online of people that have bent the pen so bad that it's unusable, where the tines are just completely separated. And I mean, they've probably basically just wasted $152. So know that this pen has limitations. It again is not marketed as a flex pen, but you can see what you can do with this pen. If you know its limitations, understand it, are willing to deal with those, you can have a really cool pen, and it can keep up pretty darn well overall without doing a ton of railroading. And I'm very impressed with that. It actually, this pen railroads less than my 74, you know, but might do a fountain pen shootout. You never know down the road. And you guys can even comment down below if you want me to do a fountain pen shootout with my custom 74, or even some other flex nibs that I've done reviews on. Let me know. And other than that, guys, awesome pen. There is a metal variant of this pen as well. It does have a much higher price tag, I think up in the 200s. I'm totally cool with the resin. You're going to get the same nib, but if you want a pen that has more heft, go with the metal one. I mean, but bear in mind, you're going to pay more. So there's always that downside as well. I'm totally fine with the resin. Again, I post it generally speaking, and I have no complaints about it. Guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Until next time, I will talk to you guys later. Goodbye.